Good evening, distinguished guests, dignitaries, and esteemed participants. I'm Ravi Kumar, Under Secretary, and on behalf of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, I'm privileged and honored to welcome you all to the 18th Urban Mobility India Conference-cum-Exhibition 2025. This roundtable session is on citizens' engagement for developing urban transit solutions, and the session is being graciously chaired by Sri Amrutesh Aurangabadkar, IAS. Guiding the discussion as the moderator is Dr. Shalini Sinha, Professor and Dean of the Faculty of Planning, SAPT University, who also is the head of the Center of the Excellence in Urban Transport at the SAPT Research and Development Foundation. To begin the session, I am honored to request the moderator, Dr. Shalini Sinha, to graciously guide the proceedings of the session. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Ravi Kumarji. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the roundtable on citizens' engagement for developing urban transport solutions, focusing on people's movement and not vehicles. Now, this is what the mantra that National Urban Transport Policy gave us in 2006. In this effort of focusing on people's movement, one important aspect is how well are the transport systems being planned, designed, operated, and managed, keeping in mind different mobility needs and requirements of city residents. Transportation enables access to different destinations. It could be workplaces, educational institutions, healthcare facilities, or it could even be just visiting friends and family, or even going for the daily shopping requirements. Efficient access improves individual well-being and overall quality of life. In contrast, poor transport system negatively impacts both people and society, compromising personal well-being and environment, and efficiency and safety at a city scale. So the key question I think that we are all talking about or thinking about is how can we make transport systems more inclusive as well as citizen-centric. This is the focus of the research project Mobilize Her, co-funded by the European Union, that we have been working on. The project team consists of UEMI, WRI India, PRIA, SEPT Research and Development Foundation, and we are working across 3 cities in India, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Kochi. So with that, using this research project that we are doing, we'll also be setting a context. But before that, in this session today, we are privileged to have distinguished speakers who would be sharing their insights, experiences on citizen-centric planning. So we're very honored to welcome Shri Amrutesh Aurangabadkar ji, Deputy Municipal Commissioner, Ahmedabad. He is also the Executive Director, Ahmedabad Janmarg Limited, which manages the bus rapid transit system in the city. Welcome, sir. We also have with us Professor H.M. Shivanand Swamy, Director Emeritus. So I think everybody knows him very well. Long experience in the urban transport sector and many accomplishments. We also have with us Delphine, who's joining online. I hope she's able to hear us. Delphine is attaché at the cooperation section of the delegation of the EU to India and involved in planning, identification, and close monitoring of EU-funded projects in Asia. If you're talking about citizens, we of course would like to have citizen representatives who have been working with the citizens, and we have Jayanti Shrikantji from Bengaluru, who is the founder of HSR Citizen Forum and has been involved with the local authorities on working on several sustainable mobility initiatives in Bangalore. Sarika Panda, Rahagiri Day movement in Haryana, and many more initiatives in human-centric public space and street planning, along with road safety. Kaustav Bandyopadhyay, who is the director of PRIA and has extensive work experience in participatory approaches in sustainable urban development. From the practitioners, we have Bankim Kalra, CEO of Center for Green Mobility. He has been working at the intersection of urban design, transport planning, and also citizen engagement, and has many projects to his cap. Harshita Jamba, Senior Program Manager at WRI India, who has been working in the area of participatory planning, capacity building, and also data-driven policies and regulations. Along with that, we also have Gautam Patel, urban finance professional working extensively with city governments in the area of public transport planning. Chintan Daftardar, who is also here today, who's with WRI and has extensive experience of having engaged in several sustainable mobility projects with the cities. So with that, I would first invite Delphine to talk briefly about EU's perspectives on inclusive and sustainable mobility. Delphine, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, super. Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this important session as part of the Urban Mobility India Conference. I deeply regret not being able to join you in person today, but I'm delighted to connect with you all virtually for this meaningful discussion. India's cities are engines of innovation and opportunity. They are home to over a third. Sorry, I just realized my camera is not on, so that's not great. Please tell me if you can see me now. Oh, it's not working. Does it work? Can you see me?
Yes, we are able to.
Great. Okay, so I was saying that India's cities are engines of innovation and opportunity. They are home to over a third of the country's population and generating the majority of its GDP. And by 2030, urban India may contribute nearly 70% of national GDP. And by 2047, these are the data from MOA, half of India's population will live in the cities. India's urban future will certainly define, its economic and environmental trajectory. And the European Union and India have share a strong commitment to building cities that are not only vibrant and innovative, but also inclusive, resilient and sustainable. And our Smart and Sustainable Urbanization Partnership was endorsed at the 15th EU-India Summit in 2017, and it embodies this shared vision. This partnership is now a global gateway flagship in India, and together with our member states, the EU is supporting India's urban transformation at national, state and city levels. Currently, we are working with more than 40 municipalities across India on climate smart development, waste management and mobility. This represents an EU commitment of over 45 million euro in grants, leveraging more than 1 billion in sustainable investment. Urban mobility is a key pillar of our cooperation through our Team Europe partners, including EIB, the European Investment Bank, KfW and AFD. We are financing metro systems in 10 cities across 6 states. These projects are shaping low-carbon, efficient and accessible mobility networks that directly benefits millions of citizens. Earlier this year at the EU-India Urban Forum, we reaffirmed our shared goal of fostering integrated and inclusive urban mobility, enhancing municipal finance capacities and mobilizing the private sector for transformational investment. And we have also agreed to collaborate on AI-driven urban management and data analytics for better planning, demonstrating how technology and sustainability can go hand in hand. In September 2025, the European Union adopted a new strategic EU-India agenda, which recognized urbanization as part of a broader partnership, connecting trade, technology, connectivity, and sustainability. This agenda deepens cooperation on decarbonization, green finance, and climate resilience, and calls for intensified work on sustainable urbanization as a driver of inclusive growth. As we look forward, our joint priorities can be framed around 3 central themes. First, climate resilience urban planning that integrates green infrastructures and nature-based solutions. Second, digital and data-driven governance that empowers citizens and improves service delivery. And third, inclusive urban economies, ensuring that no one is left behind in the transition to sustainability. A core element of inclusivity is gender-responsive mobility. And since 2024, the EU has partnered with UEMI, WRI India, CEPT and PRIA to address the gender and mobility nexus through the Mobilize Her program, which Shalini has introduced earlier. And I think we'll be talking a lot this afternoon about why mainstreaming gender in urban transportation system is important. So what I want to say finally today is that today's challenge for the urban mobility sectors lies at the intersection of two defining forces: rapid urban transformation and our shared responsibility to build greener, more inclusive and more resilient cities. The European Union is a committed partner to India and is well positioned to support this transformation, combining innovation, sustainability and inclusivity to shape urban futures that work for all citizens. I thank you very much for your attention, and I sincerely thank our partners and, of course, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for organizing this event, which continues to bring together visionary leaders and practitioners in the urban mobility sector. Thank you very much, and I wish us all very fruitful deliberation and discussion.
Thank you, Delphine. Thank you for highlighting the EU-India collaboration and partnership in the areas of sustainable urbanization and also sustainable mobility, which includes climate resilience, data and digital-driven decision-making. Thank you so much. So with that, we will start with the session. Firstly, we just wanted to set out the basic context in which we would like to talk about citizens' engagement. And there is a short poll that we have. So on your desk, you would have these QR codes there. So please take out your mobile phones, only for this poll though. And if you can scan this QR code, you will have a series of questions that we will take you through. If you could just respond to what you think the answers are. Thank you. Over to Meenal.
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Professor Shalini, and a very good afternoon to everyone. So I hope everyone has scanned this code, and let's to begin with it. So the first thing that we would want to ask, like, who makes more number of trips per day? So people travel for different purposes, probably for grocery, shopping, temple, and other purposes related to their household. So who do you think makes more number of trips per day? Please do not exit the page. We'll be switching to the next question, so please stay on there. So next question is, who, according to you, why do women travel? Well, like, what is the predominant purpose of their travel? Caregiving, 90%. 87% of the caregiving trips. Yes. So 76% almost feel it's a caregiving and responsibility. Yes. Yes. Similarly, what, according to you, like, what is the predominant purpose of travel for men? 100% work? 3% social. We still have majority on 89% of work trips for men. Next. So 2 more questions. For travel, which mode do you think is mostly used by women? Whether is it walk, cycle, two-wheeler, bus, petrol, auto? Maybe. So there is a predominance of walk trip that is coming across, 44% of the walk trips happening. But mainly relying on either walk or shuttle service. So similarly, what is it for men? What do you think about it? This is a dominance over two-wheeler or four-wheeler being used by men. Just 17% of public transport and otherwise 73% of private being used. So I think with this context, Professor Shalini, I think you can set
Thanks,
it. Thank you so
Meena.
much.
Thank you everyone for this short poll. I think we are, the answers are not very different from what we have got across in the 3 cities. So we have a small presentation just outlining the key findings from the study. Across these 3 cities of Ahmedabad, Bangalore, as well as Kochi, there are extensive surveys that we have done in order to understand how people travel. So the household surveys have been undertaken, but while we doing the household surveys, we have ensured that we capture every trip which is there, however small they may be, and whatever purpose could be, even if it is in the morning, early morning or afternoon, so not just focusing on peak hours, but through the day. Commuter surveys to understand perceptions of people, and focus group discussions with communities across in different parts of the city in order to understand the experiences on everyday mobility, needs, barriers, and preferences. Now with that, if we put together some of the statistics which come out of the study is, I think the audience was right in saying it's almost, so female residents make as many trips per day as men. I think the answer was something around 55%, so women making a little more. It's almost similar kind of trip numbers that the 2 make through the day. If you look at the purpose, again, I think you were all right, in which predominant purpose for men is work, because the workforce participation rate for male residents in the city is much higher than women. And women making more of caregiving and responsibility trips, that seems to be the responsibility of female household members. 63% in Ahmedabad, and in Bangalore it's 48%. In terms of the choice of mode, if you see, walk seems to be a predominant mode across the 3 cities. And within walk as well, if you see, almost 66% people who walk are women. So women are making more trips by walk, and they are the major pedestrians in the city. So if we are doing transport system design and we do not have, we have very good metro systems, bus systems, but if footpaths are not there, then are the cities really inclusive? Men, of course, use more two-wheelers or private vehicles, and public transport did not really emerge out as a major choice mode, unfortunately. Next, please. Women also make more trips which are chained. So they will go out, they will do one purpose, they'll do another around the neighborhood. Also because most of the caregiving or responsibility work trips are handled by them. And that would also mean they are more accompanied trips, because somebody, a child or an elderly person, is also kind of traveling with them. And that is quite a distinction from the male members' trips. In terms of time of travel, the peak hours for male commuters as well as for female people who are traveling seem to be very different. So when we design systems for peak hour, whose peak hour are we talking about? Are we talking about female residents, or are we talking about male residents? That's also something that needs thought. In terms of access to smartphones, we thought with the new digital solutions or app-based services which are coming in, access to smartphone, comfort of using these apps is another matter, but the access of smartphone is the first step, was something that we checked. The numbers are quite, in case of Ahmedabad, it's much lower than in case of Bengaluru and Kochi. But the key question is there really a digital divide? And with all these app-based or technology, new technology coming in, is it inclusive? And what do we need to do in order to make this really inclusive? When we analyze the data by age, by categorizing them between 14 to 22 years, 23 to 65 years, and the elderly population, across all cities, I think we found that walk happens to be a predominant mode across all age groups. In Bengaluru, however, the number in students seems to be quite less. But what is interesting is students who are public transport riders, they move to private personal modes of travel once they start working. Now, this is something which is really not desirable, and therefore, what is it that we need to do in case of public transport services to make them attractive so that we can retain riders besides attracting more riders? I think that's something which is very important. And therefore, the decline in public transport seems to be, a positive for the personalized modes of travel, because that seems to be increasing with age. But if you actually look at the elderly population here, predominantly they are doing shorter trips, again walking, and therefore that is something that is really, really desirable. Yeah, next. So very quickly summarizing that walk happens to be a predominant mode for all city residents, for female residents as well as elderly. Access to personal vehicles is also something which is very limited to women household members. And since they make most of the caregiving trips, travel with children, family members, what is a kind of a transport system which is needed, which addresses their requirements is essential. Public transport usage seemed low amongst all user groups except for the students. From the focus group discussions, talking to women specifically, the project is Mobilize Her, so there's a strong gender component here. We were trying to assess in terms of, how do they look at transport system, and these are statements across cities. They talked about when the transport system is good. So in Bengaluru, they talked about how it has helped improve the employment opportunities, improve the, net saving because they're not spending on transport, and also how it provides them with the independence of actually traveling to wherever they want to. And I think that is the role of the mobility system, to enable people to travel wherever they want to, for whatever purpose they would like to do. One other thing that came up was the challenges in the last mile connectivity, and also challenges in walking, concerns of safety, which was very, very high, important for women. Access to the bus stops or even accessing the buses because of the boarding issues for the differently abled was something that was, so universal accessibility was another point that came out. Public transport services are there, but the information is missing, and therefore that is a major deterrent. It pushes people away because they do not really know whether the service is coming, not coming, if the service is coming, which areas is it connecting. So if you're talking about new riders, this information is something which is absolutely critical. So when we compiled these issues across the cities, of course, there's a lot of granular information, very specific to the city, area-specific information that we have. But if we combine this information all together, what we found was men were concerned about traffic congestion, increasing time because they're stuck in congestion and productive time being lost. In comparison, women were more concerned about walkability and safety. Elderly, again talking about walkability, concerns about public transport. Students also concerned about public transport, cost of travel, and the information availability. Differently abled were, of course, concerned about universal accessibility, but also the sensitivity of the staff plus the people towards them was something that emerged as one of some of the key issues. So if we look at all of these concerns closely, we realize that all of these concerns are pertaining to local level design, infrastructure quality, whether the services are available, not available during different times of the day, and also the cultural and the social norms. In comparison to this, while we compared the planning process that we have, so what kind of plans that we are making for the cities? We have statutory plans, which consists of development plan or master plan, which outlines the road network at the city level, and then lower level plans like town planning schemes, zonal plans, or detailed development plans, which are detailing out the road network at a more local level. Transportation plans, comprehensive mobility plan, it is not a statutory plan, but in some ways it is a mandated plan because the metro funding is linked to this. And therefore CMP, alternative analysis, detailed project reports, all of these are undertaken, but the key outcome of this is essentially the metro network decisions. All the local level interventions, so whether we talk about the footpaths, street lighting, junction design, where should the bus stop be, the design of the bus stop, the frequency with buses are coming, information, these micro level or local level interventions, which the people are concerned about, is undertaken through annual budgetary allocations by respective agencies. Now, the challenge here is some of these things are done by multiple agencies and they're not really looked at more comprehensive at a local level. So if there is a bus stop siting that is happening there, how do we connect footpaths? How do we connect the bus stop to the metro station so that the interchange is as seamless as possible? Do the streets at a local level designed in a way that the footpaths, apart from the clear widths, are shaded for comfort, access to different destinations? So all of that is really not happening. And the other thing is our monitoring and evaluation processes also are not there in order to look at what kind of mobility services or mobility infrastructure that we are providing at the local level. So with that kind of a context, we move ahead and we move ahead to the discussion for this roundtable. And maybe we can start discussing about, so the first question that we would like to talk about is, do our cities recognize the need for citizen-centric planning? And if the speakers have any, kind of insights on what kind of measures are being taken, which are really micro level, responding to the user requirements, and what are the key learnings and challenges? So maybe we could start with Bankim. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you so much for the presentation where we're shown a lot of data points, and I think a lot of things that in our experience working with communities in the transport planning sort of domain, we're looking at people as data points even now. It's been a while that we've been looking at comprehensive mobility plans happened. The smart cities came in, took it a little further from data points to human beings and their experiences. So as it relates to, I'm going to give a couple of examples as it relates to the innovations that I am aware of in this small city of Bhubaneswar that have been tried is with the capital region urban transport, is the bus transit system over there. And one thing which really helped was having a full-time communication cell put into the bus transit agency. I'm talking about public transport from a bus perspective right now, which has been existing since it was formed in 2018. Since then, there's been a full-time budgeted communication cell placed in the transit agency. I mean, I do not know if there are other examples, would love to look at that. But what that did also was it built the trust. There was when Crude came in, there was a trust deficit which happened with the initial Bhubaneswar-Puri Transport Service Limited. And that trust of having constant communication, the new routes that were coming in, the feedback from social media, which was being redressed as well within a 24 to 48 hour period, that I think helped a lot build the trust. And today we're looking at almost like 3 lakhs daily ridership for something like a small city like Bhubaneswar with a population of around 12 to 15 lakhs, if you want to talk about it. And we do feel that made a huge impact in that. The second thing related again to mobility, which was tried with a pilot project that GIZ and CRUT had done, and we'd helped with that, was on a pilot on first and last mile connectivity through e-rickshaws, driven by women and transgender. That was the pilot, and this happened just around COVID. The interesting part and learnings from that is something that I would like to share. I mean, it was conceived, it was going to be taken out, but we realized that majority of the women and transgender population that had signed up did not have a license. We had in our mind assumed, because you're thinking auto rickshaws, e-rickshaws, everyone has a license. But they did not. So that had to go through, since it was a public transport vehicle, it had to go through this entire 3 months time period of getting them a driver license training from the institute to make it happen. Little other thing which was there, which I feel helps to look at the micro level planning that you were mentioning about. When it was there, one of the biggest issues that was happening was they did not have access to public toilets. If you have a male driver, well, as we know in India, the landscape is your ground. You please go ahead and do whatever you want to. But when it came to the female drivers, women drivers, and transgender drivers that we had, the biggest issue we started facing was they were not able to do that. So one of the things that we did was we started talking to the corporate offices. So for example, one of the routes was InfoCity, which is there, which is a IT park kind of thing, that they give access to some of these things, or maybe the state bank. So we had to sort of get a little innovative on that. So yeah, these are some of the examples just to take the conversation forward from a public transport perspective. From a mobility perspective, I think, again, a lot of it is just data, which we are trying to sort of, I'm sure Sarika and all of us who are working there are looking at co-creation. It's not just about you tell us, we tell you, and bye. It is about how do we do it together. So again, and believe me, children are so good at this. We're doing a project right now with BMC on safe route to schools in a small neighborhood in Bhubaneswar. Have to tell you, their insights on where they're coming from, where you want to make the safe route is just an eye-opener. So that would be my sort of 2 cents on this.
Thank you, Bankim. Thanks for talking about the CRUT experience and also talking about co-creation. That's something that we'll come to a little later maybe. But Sarika, would you like to share your thoughts on how citizen-centric are the planning initiatives in our cities?
The city we are sitting here, Gurugram, is actually the mobility. I'm not saying about the city's land use or the city expansion in terms of real estate, but the mobility started with participatory approach, citizens' participation actually. In fact, 13 years back when we started Rahagiri Day, it was all citizens. It was not just us or we are doing anything. It's like when we call mobility, like, especially for this kind of project, it's for the people and by the people actually. And Gurugram has given lot of, I know that you all have heard all bad thing about Gurugram, but I'm telling you good thing about Gurugram today. Yeah, so that's not true actually. So, a national level movement which catalyst from Gurugram, which is Rahagiri Day, where, that time hardly any one of us was cycling. Okay, we were using public transport, some form of people like us who are working in the sector or people who are bound to use public transport. They still walk or use public transport. But that whole movement of Rahagiri Day, which started from Gurugram, is just because of participatory approach from citizens, corporate, and urban local bodies. Government, of course, they were the main stakeholder for this. But the citizen of the Gurugram owned it. And wherever we did it, it was just citizen of Gurugram. Bumpking, if you remember when we started in Bhubaneswar, we were there for only 1 or 2 Rahagiri days. Later, it was just taken over by the citizens. That's it. So, this is where I think there is a huge gap when we don't talk to the citizen about mobility in our city. That was one moment. But actually, people still think that buses create traffic jams. Okay, actually, people still thinks if you build a footpath, you are narrowing the ROW and there will be a traffic jam. So whom we are educating? First I think we need to go bottoms up. First we need to educate the citizen. Here I remember, if the people are stuck in Gurugram for 10 minutes, the whole Twitter of Gurugram police, GMD and everyone like thrashing back and front, up and down like anything. So for the 10 minutes, 15 minutes traffic jam, forget about that 1 hour traffic jam during rain. So everyone is concerned about traffic. If you are concerned about traffic, then whole your NUTP guideline about moving people has gone. You are concerned about moving vehicles. That is the fundamental problem right now the entire country is facing. So because of that, what is happening is every city you see is building more roads, more flyovers, more underpasses. That is again we need to work towards from backward only. We have not entered into in the center position in the mobility yet after 18th UMI, but we need to work backward. And as you said, in your initial thing also, talking about nature-based solution, talking about participatory approach, or talking about the gender-based solution, this all comes from community. This all comes from local self-help group, local civic society organizations. You need to work with them. There are a lot of people in the city who knows the city better than, I think, many of us who just go to the city as a migrant. So that is the key, because there only I think in next 10 years, the whole dynamic of mobility will change, where then people will start tweeting about we need 1,000 buses. Because when the moment in every meeting I say we need 1,000 buses, the city will choke. कहाँ चलेगी buses? अरे आप फुटपाथ बना दोगे, एक लेन खराब कर दे, कौन चलता है इस सिटी में? So that is where we need lot of citizens engagement, and somehow it actually not happening much anymore, which was there before COVID, and we need to restart it again. So we'll talk more about other things, but again one more thing I want to add. The NMT policy of Gurugram, again driven by citizen. Just because of them, lot of corporate, NASCOM, everyone sat together with GMDA to actually focused on developing an NMT policy, because nothing was happening towards CMP. CMP was there from last to 2010, but nothing was happening. So they said, let's put together an NMT policy, and it was all pushed by the corporates or the civic society group or the private entities. So I think it's a very, very important topic that we are discussing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you for highlighting the need for education and awareness. And unless that is done, we will not be able to institute change. And also talking about the positive experience of the NMT policy of Gurugram and how citizens have kind of driven that change. Professor Swami, your thoughts on this in terms of how well we recognize citizen-centric planning?
Okay, thank you, Shalini. I thought you won't ask me this question. Yeah. And over the years, one has seen a lot of changes, some for better, some for worse. Both things we are seeing there. Few decades, I'm saying, back, what used to happen was either a chief minister or a mayor or somebody influential politician would look at something somewhere, or he heard from him, or some vendor come and make a presentation, or some government is making a policy, and therefore one thought, and therefore the projects were identified and implemented. There was nothing like planning. And I think it was around 2005, 6, 7, okay, the Gujarat's urban year 2005, subsequently JNN RM as part of the government of India. something called Comprehensive Mobility Plan came up there. Yeah, and that again, as an if I may call it as an animal of a sort. Okay, it is supposed to be several animals which we create to invest in our cities. One is a development plan, another one is a mobility plan. They don't talk to each other, I think. Leave aside that part of it there. Each of the guidebooks or documents which we have prepared or somebody else has prepared have spoken about need for participation. But we don't know at what level, what type of participation is required. Okay, when we were doing BRT in Ahmedabad, people did not know, अरे यार कैसा हो सकता है कि बीच में बस कैसे चलेगा, बाजू में ये कैसा होगा, बीच में बस स्टेशन कैसा होगा, how will you reach? And it's more than asking them whether you need a BRT or not. You need to demonstrate something and ask them whether it will work and how convenient it is. You know, there are several ways of communicating, taking views of the people, taking participation. I think there is only, and either there are two extremes now. Either there are, I'm sorry if I may use, some people, there are protests, or there are like, how can you do this? You will not do it, we will not allow you to do it. And then other way to do it is do whatever you want to do, we don't care. That's what is the kind of a thing which is happening there. I think people in the government are interested in doing some good work as well, because they are also people, they are educated, wherever they are there today because of some kind of a commitment, all of that. And if people and the people's representatives, I think what Sarika has done has not happened without, again, the government which is again elected and there are executives. I think how do we put together a collaborative effort, okay, amongst people's representatives, formally, politically elected, and other NGOs, and the government person executives. And there is definitely a role for academicians to play. Being an academician, I would definitely say that. I think that's it's an evolutionary process. It is not a one-day process. And there are also decisions like mobility plan. How many of those mobility plan decisions can we really go to people and ask? I think we need to do is like once some kind, it's not a technical document either. It is a technical document. It's not a fully technical document. And therefore, we need to talk about people, communicate to them more in terms of outcomes of that mobility plan, rather than we will build a metro here, we will build a road here, I think that's lot of it is also participatory mechanisms have to be evolved there. I think that's the key part there. Also, when we were doing BRT, again, I'll go back there. There are two instances I'll tell you. One, we have in BRT, MD is here, we have doors, okay, station doors there. They are made of glass, basically. Visibility is critical. Therefore, people inside feel safe. But then initial period when we were making, some people would come and throw stones at it. Once, twice, thrice. Mr. I.P. Gautam was municipal commissioner there. Immediate thing which came to us, and MD then asked him ki we should go and file a complaint, okay, so that, okay, things can be controlled there. And then he said, look, this is a public property. How long can we really protect this property? How many police people can we keep? Well, once, let them throw. Once, twice, thrice, 4 times. And there is a time when things stopped. Okay, and therefore, and that's one instance. The second instance, I'll tell you, on one of the corridor, people wanted an opening there. And the difficulty was there was a very unsafe place for an opening there. And so 500 people came, and then they just were protesting there. And therefore, then people went and told them, look, the difficulties, demonstrated one day, second day, third day. I think it's a matter of these collaborations. It is not so much about engagement either. Again, it's a collaboration. How do you build these people, public sector or government collaboration? I think is the key question there. I think cities have to evolve that way, not only driven by the technical expertise. I think I can come back on that later. Maybe I did something.
Thank you, sir. So I also have a question for Amrutesh ji, focusing more on Ahmedabad and Ahmedabad's mobility. There are several initiatives that are being taken by Ahmedabad city. What efforts are being done to make them citizen-centric?
Thank you. Yes, insofar as making citizen-centric urban transport is concerned, Ahmedabad has initiated quite a few systemic changes. As we all discuss, changes can be individual-centric, they can be institution-centric. Most of the individual-centric or person-centric changes don't last. They last insofar as the person in charge is interested, takes it up, fine. But Ahmedabad, I would like to share is when we have the budget, before the budget, we invite suggestions from the public. What would you like to be the city budget like? For the next year's budget, I'm happy to share that we already have received over 6,000 suggestions as on date. That is the people's aspirations. It also includes the transport sector. What do they want in the transport sector? Do they want new routes? Do they want extended routes? Do they want fewer buses? As has been pointed out कि ज़्यादा buses करोगे तो traffic jam हो जाएगा. We want fewer buses in some areas. या तो बस खाली जा रही है. It can be anything. So that is one of the institutional system that we have started up, we have taken it up, and we think that, needless to say, it is a sample, but we think it represents the people's will. So we get it, we don't believe as it is. We get it vetted from experts, institutions like CEPT help us in getting them analyzed properly, and on the basis of data, we take a decision. But that is one of the means by which we engage with the citizens. That is one. Second is, we definitely, as do all the urban local bodies have, we also have a political wing, we have a transport committee. So the committee also takes up different routes. I would like to share, the demand for a new route keeps on increasing. Nobody cares what the fleet size is. The fleet size remains constant and demand for new routes keep coming up every day. So at one point of time, what we have done in Ahmedabad, I would like to share, we have categorized the routes in 4 types, A, B, C, and D. The D are the loss-making ones. Most of them are loss-making ones, but D and C are comparatively higher loss-making ones. So whenever a new route demand comes up, I ask anybody who comes up with the demand is, which of these routes would you like to stop? So that I can start a new one, because the fleet size is limited. So there has to be a trade-off. And definitely, again, the political wing also takes up the matter in the right spirit, and the citizens also. We start the routes on a priority basis and on a temporary basis to begin with, and then we operationalize on a permanent basis. Those routes which give us better responses from the public, we operationalize them on a permanent basis, and we discontinue the loss-making ones. Another interesting thing, while the demand for new routes, the demand for more buses keeps on increasing, nobody wants a depot in the neighborhood. It is like, नहीं यहाँ पे buses आएगी तो रात भर ये चलेगा, workshop का काम होता रहेगा, it will create disturbance, and we don't want a depot in the neighborhood. So that is another issue which is less spoken of. But while we speak of increasing the fleet size, it also needs to be taken care of, and I think the right way to deal with it is to take it up in the town planning scheme. Today, there are no plots which are reserved for transport sector in the urban planning schemes. What we have is plots for sale for residential purposes, sale for commercial purposes, neighborhood centers, gardens, so on and so forth. But we don't have any plot which is reserved for transport sector. Why do I wish that this be included is, when we are developing a new town planning scheme, we can actually find a plot which will cause lesser public inconvenience, so to say. If it is at the planning stage, it can be plotted at the right place. What is happening is, abhi sab kuch ho jata hai, baaju mein residential ho jata hai, and we find which is the biggest plot, fine, this one, give this to us. That won't solve the problem, it will create more problems. And the same is the case with solid waste management. Humko kuch banana hai, people will resist. But if we want to develop a robust public transport system, We need citizen engagement in not only the routes, the town planning system as well as the fleet size. All of them are equally important. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting Ahmedabad's initiatives of having suggestions drawn from the people and responding to those suggestions as much as possible. I think all of us talked about co-evolving solutions, and unless the solutions are co-evolved, it will not really work. So what is the role of the citizens in co-evolving solutions? And I'll also add another question because I'm just looking at the time, but what role can CSOs play in this citizen engagement and co-creating solutions? So maybe we can start with Jayanti ji.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Good evening to all of you. See, I am talking here with my experience as CSO, HSR Citizen Forum, and our engagement with the public, with the community constantly to evolve a solution that has worked very well, phenomenally well. And thanks to Directorate of Urban Land Transport and WRI, which gave a lot of capacity building workshops, everything earlier in those days, as we started the project, that we knew exactly how to find the right real need for the community. And I think, as Sir said, a lot of times, this is the first time government has come to us asking, what is it that you really want? You tell us and we will help you pilot the project and see if, if that works. As Amritesh sir said, if that works, we are going to make it happen. And we did a lot, as all the survey that Madam shared in the presentation. We did household survey, and with understanding the travel diary, travel pattern of people of our neighborhood. And interestingly, we thought that people will say walkability is what we expected, but 96% of the people said they wanted public transport. That is just an eye-opener, and if we had just gone about and done any project, that wouldn't have worked. But because of citizen engagement, we actually found out that people really wanted public transport. And we also did, 50.5% of the women who took part in the survey also, they also wanted public transport, and because they take many short trips and they know it is expensive for them to take an auto, particularly when they have the time constraint and taking care of the family and all that. And in addition to that, we also had focus group discussion for women, senior, and people with challenges. And we put together 5 different proposals to public to come and vote in HSR. So that is a level of engagement that we had. And so the solution evolved ultimately belong to the citizens of our neighborhood, and the success also we owe it to the citizens who have patronized. So we came up with HSR feeder service. It's like a shuttle service. Within the layout, within a 9-kilometer loop service. And we talking to people, we found out how long people are willing to wait. So we found out that about 10-15%, okay, minutes of time, and after that they get restless, they want to look at other options. So we took a recce of the entire route, identified the right route for people, they will patronize. And we found out that, got the route, and then we, after that, the service was introduced with a 10-minute frequency because it takes 50 minutes to go around on full route. And because of the frequency, the reliability and all that, more people started taking. And initially people were not at all aware of what this bus is all about. And we citizens also engaged in very active campaign, 100 days of very campaign in all different ways, innovative campaign ideas, and we could see the ridership going up. And now we are very happy to say that every day in a small loop, in a small community neighborhood, 6,000 people are taking the bus service. It is really, really amazing. We could see I just see the graph as it goes up, and it's really wonderful to see the ridership, and even now it is increasing month on month. And also, we found out that 67% of the riders are women riders, and which is much more than the average, what you would expect in a transport corporation. Also thanks to Shakti scheme, free ridership, and it is very empowering for women now. They are able to go from any part of the layout looking for a job, increasing their income potential, and then senior citizens are feeling empowered because they are able to, they are not depending on their families, and like the, also people with challenges, they are able to use. So all this has added to the, and then we campaign, still continue to campaign any platform, and so the ridership keeps increasing, and we are really, really happy to share that success story. And yeah.
Thank you.
Anything
Thank
more?
you.
Yeah, we can discuss
Thank
later.
you,
Yeah.
Shalini. Kaustav, if you would like to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Shalini. With regard to the question of role of citizens, citizens could be users of a service, could be a participants in a program, public program, could be a problem solver, and could be a change agent. As sort of many stories are already coming in today's deliberation, depending on the context and the kind of support that they garner with the from the public authorities. The first sort of role that we see from the citizen is that participating in the participatory planning process. And by sharing their lived experience, which we call data, and without listening to those lived experience, you cannot have a data-driven planning and governance, whether it is transport or it's a general sort of urban development. So at the heart of it is listening to people, listening to people's problems as well as ideas. And the Mobility Hub project has shown the enormous sort of, ideas that reside within the citizens. But there are two prerequisites to it. One is that in order to initiate a large-scale participation, you have to institutionalize the civic, kind of infrastructure. Unfortunately, because of the non-implementation or lack of implementation of 74th constitutional amendment, we don't have a large-scale civic infrastructure where you invite large-scale citizen participation. And therefore, we have to rely on experimentation and initiatives of Rahagiri or HSR layout, and they are significant, beautiful experiments, but putting them at a scale would be difficult without having a kind of, an institutional structure. And second is what Professor Sami was also talking about, that, today we either have protest or have sort of indifference. We don't have a constructive engagement, large-scale constructive engagement. And that would require, citizens' willingness to participate and contribute. The second role that we could see is the promotion of sustainable mobility option or participating in sustainable mobility option. And Sarika was talking about walking or cycling, in a kind of non-motorized transport options. And therefore, again, two things would be required. One is kind of the city must provide that kind of infrastructure which is safe and usable. And second is that citizens are willing to learn new behavior. Unless these two things, work together, there cannot be any significant progress. And as demonstrated in many cities, citizens are already developing local solutions. And HSR layout is a perfect example. But again, such localized solution must be scaled up with appropriate support and resourcing from the authorities. Last question that you talked about, the role of civil society organization, that is critical because on its own, many a times, citizens cannot come together, and particularly those who are marginalized, those who are in a kind of underdeveloped situation. Participation would require some time resources, some encouragement, and that has to come from the civil society organizations. So they can organize the community voices, and particularly for those who are vulnerable or marginalized. And particularly, you talked about people with disability. Mankim, you talked about the transgender people. So their participation would require some amount of support from the civil society organizations. Perhaps the most important critical role that civil society can play is a bridging function, and bridging function between citizens and the public authority. Many a times citizens on their own, despite sort of their effort, or maybe a kind of noble effort from the public authorities, that kind of dialogues do not happen. Our cities do not have a dialogue culture. So therefore it's sort of quite antagonistic to citizens against the public authority, or public authority blaming citizens on certain things. So progressive civil society has to come in between and bridge those dialogue in order to coming up with a feasible solution. Let me take a pause here.
Thank you, Costa. Thanks for highlighting the need for scaling up, and also the role that CSOs can play as bridging function between the local authority and the citizens. I'll quickly go to Harshita for her comments on this.
Okay. So I think I'll just illustrate the example from Mobilizer. I think when we went out to collect our data, it started with dialogue. We spoke to a bunch of people in Bangalore. We ensured that we interacted with women, but not just women, women who were in the informal workforce, women who were not working, homemakers. We spoke to transgenders. We spoke to people with disabilities. We spoke to students. So, commuters are also a diverse set of people. No two commuters use public transport the same way. And I think that is how we understood that women who, for instance, in Bangalore were working, spoke about unreliable last mile commute. Students spoke about not being, metro areas not being safe, so for them to not being able to access late tuitions, right? Homemakers spoke about the difficulty of walking with toddlers or grocery bags and uneven footpaths. So, you have to design for the entire spectrum. And I think these lived experiences is how we collected that local data, which otherwise would have sort of gone missed in a bird's eye view of our planning processes that are quite set in its ways. And that's exactly what we tried to do. But beyond dialogue, I think we went back to the same communities, we shared our findings, we validated them, and we also jointly ideated possible solutions, and that is where sort of the magic happened. When they started reflecting on how things can improve, the ideas started to emerge, and that's what we are calling, co-creation in our cities. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Harshita. So I think we'll also have to open up for the questions from the audience, but one very quick question that I would like the experts to comment on is, we talked about co-creation, we talked about scaling up. So from these project level interventions to something which is more formalized through a plan making mechanism, what changes in the planning process do you see so that this co-creation can be institutionalized and it's not really just project based? What we could also do is, we have Mohinder here, and he could just talk about how is it that it is being done, talking about getting respondents or perspectives from people about the service design, or how is that being done?
In Singapore.
In Singapore, of course.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, all of you. I didn't expect to come here and answer questions, but I'm happy to do that. Okay. Actually, after listening to all the speakers here, I find that a lot of the knowledge is already there. A lot of the understanding and the awareness is already there. Okay, so I will just maybe echo one or 2 points and maybe just describe a little bit of our experience in Singapore. Okay, the first point I would like to echo, which sort of resonated with me, is how do the authorities or the powers treat the civic society people? Okay, now that's critical because even in our case in Singapore in the early days, the authorities were, well, let's put it this way, they were unfriendly with the civic society people because, look, I want to implement something, and here you are telling me, no, look at this, look at that, what about this alternative and all that. So in a way, it sort of did not expedite or slow down the planning process and implementation process. And the governments are very keen to implement things quickly, okay? So that's one first point, okay, how the civic society gets accepted as part of the planning process. I think over a period of time, over decades, and I think it's not a thing you can legislate just like that. I think legislation may exist, but over a period of time, it becomes something that is accepted. So now, in the case back in my country, in Singapore, when you do a master planning, even a concept plan of the whole island, which is done every 10 years, there is a structured process of consulting the population. Okay, so and that is a requirement already. So that process is done over a period of time, maybe 1-2 years, before the sort of the concept plan gets adopted. Okay, and like I said, it took a while. I mean, in the earlier days, it was just top down. Okay, now it's top as well as coming from down. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is that going down to more a detail level and more maybe to do with mobility is how to engage the people when you're doing relatively minor projects, but that affect them. A simple example is a rerouting of a bus service. Okay. Now, how do you do that? Okay, you could just draw on a map and say, look, I'm going to reroute this, and it's going to be 10 minutes. But no, I think, and that's how it was done in earlier days. But now, before you can get it approved, that route, it's got to be taken through a process of consulting the population or the affected population, and that's how it has gone about. But I must say, it's not something which is can be done quickly. It's a journey, okay. And I think again, like I hear a lot of things, civic society is obviously very vibrant in India, okay. And I think looking at the stage of development in our country, I think the civic society in India is much more vibrant. So in fact, that's a very encouraging sign, because if civic society is vibrant, they are prepared to put their head out, okay, and to be considered. And I think it's on the side of the government and the authorities to get accepted. And I think that's some of my comments. I don't know whether yeah. I'll stop there, but if there are any questions or more detail, I'm happy to sort of answer them. Yeah.
Thanks.
Just to let you know, Mohinder was heading the Land Transport Academy, Singapore, retired 4 years back.
Yep, about that.
Yes, and very rich experience in terms of managing public transport, planning for public transport. Thank you, Mohinder.
Thanks, Mohinder. So coming back to that question in terms of what is it that we should do in the planning process to institutionalize, very quick 2 points. I think we can start with Bankim and then, yeah. Yeah.
Very quick 2 points. I think one, we need to start understanding and realizing that facilitation and mediation is a very, very important role in citizen participation. It's not just, right now we expect an urban planner, a transport planner to be able to handle the trade-offs, everything that we're talking about. Our planning processes could introduce the structured process that Mohinder is talking about, but also with the right kind of professionals. We're not magicians. There are people who have that expertise on how to make negotiations happen when a citizen is asking for something. There is a technical side. So that would be one that I would say could change in the process. Any RFP that comes along, instead of just having GIS data analyst, urban planner, transport planner, let's please include a facilitator or communication with a social background coming into it. The second I would say is we have to start humanizing what we're talking about. Transit-oriented development, high density, nobody understands that beyond us. And even we don't understand that a lot of times. My request would be for the planning processes, as well as what Sarika was saying, education has to go to the level of my mom, 86-year-old, or your kid, which is 6-year-old. We have to be able to humanize whatever we're talking about here. The word nexus that we were thinking about, the Urban Development and Mobility Nexus, is not a very positive word for a lot of people. It talks about a mafia nexus, which comes to my mind. So it's very, very important to start working on the semantics, and we don't have enough research happening at whatever level on making it very, very basic. Those 2 points.
Thanks. Sarika? Very quickly. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. So I think what Bankim said, yeah, you know, my 2 cents is, you know, we need to institutionalize it. And as you said that we have vibrant CSOs, but we also have not given up CSOs in India. We are still fighting from last more than 2 decades now. So we need to keep talking about it. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep fighting. And there will be some results. So I'm giving you a quick example again in Gurugram. We developed one street, and the government plan was to cut all the trees and widen the road because they said there is a traffic jam. We fought for 2 years, and the citizens of Gurugram helped us, actually. We could not have done it alone because generally they don't listen to, they think that we are the culprits, we always anti-development kind of people. So then, actually the civic society group and the NASCOM team came with us, went to the CM of Haryana, that time now Mr. Khattar is Mahua, and that street used to called Anath Road, and he named it to Sanath Road, and today he was quite happy to see that the street looking so good now. But why I'm giving you this example, the villagers from that street, and from that one street, which was like, on our dream also we never thought of we will able to convert it into such a beautiful street in an industrial area, congested area. Now every industries in that whole Udyog Vihar demanding for such street, and within a year we developed more 2 street, and another 3 street is going to develop in that. So entire that Udyog Vihar industrial area as a neighborhood going to be converted. So also when we ask for citizens say or participation or demand for right thing, sometimes this demonstration as a pilot project helps actually. But the scaling has to be through government only. They can only scale it, not we. And that is the first street which has been developed by CSR money. Not just government money, but a street that has been developed by private people. So it's again a nice examples, and that can be that where we are scaling it to now 60 kilometer streets in Gurugram. So sometimes, these are like little things which makes us happy.
Thanks, Sarika. Harshita, any quick points?
On institutionalizing, I think, I don't know if you will, if time permits, but I think budgets is definitely a very important tool that we could explore and how we want to institutionalize it. And I think collection of this data beyond, just data points, the way that we collect our data and also get qualitative is another way. I think those are my 2 cents.
Thanks. Costa? Please, I'll come to.
Well, I'm sort of continue to advocate for large-scale participation.
Quick 2 points.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's point number 1. And second is that we need a kind of fine balance between like boutique innovation and then marrying it with a large-scale institutional mechanism where this can rapidly sort of scaled up and replicated in many places.
Okay. Thank you. Jayanti?
Yeah, see, all these little experiments and the model, the pilot projects that we create and make it success, there should be a way to make it as a universal that it can be adopted. So any learnings from these things have to be shared. So knowledge management is one of the important things that I feel is going to make help in the process of institutionalizing anything. Okay. So, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Amritesh, do you want to add anything?
Most of it is already said, but there are only, 1 or 2 things. One is when we speak of citizen engagement, I think it should be systemic and continuous rather than being one-off. There is an incident, there is a protest, citizens are engaged, it is resolved, that is fine. If we have a mechanism of continuous citizen engagements, I think it will give us long-term and better results. That is one. And second would be when we speak of engagement in budgetary exercises, what I think is if we can have maybe whatever percentage, depending upon the financial health of the urban local body, let's say 10% of the budgetary allocation would be exclusively based upon what citizens recommend, only what the citizens recommend. It might fail. Few projects might take up very well, few of them might be just okay, and few of them might fail. But that is fine. But I think that can be also one of the ways to engage citizens in a responsible and a better manner.
Thank you. Professor? Two quick points.
Two quick points.
Quick points.
Yeah. One, continuing with the budgets, and I think we talk about how much money we have spent, but what was intended, whether we achieved or not, I think that transparency, if we can bring out, I think that would be one quick point. Yeah? I think that's good enough, right? And therefore, annual budgetary part of it, whatever happens, they have a balance sheet in the what was intended, whether they achieved or not achieved. I think that's something of that kind.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the experts for their points. I'll now open it up for the audience if they have any questions to ask to any of our expert speakers.
Suggestions.
Questions, comments, suggestions, anything is welcome.
Quick, one.
Yes. Chintan.
Hello. Yeah, I would just like to add through a suggestion. Okay, so how the decision making is done for especially budgeting, like sir, is the heads there have to decide on how this expenditure and the revenues will work and how they will maintain those. We have to understand that it is not just the financial, but the economics, the ROI, the return of investment which is going to happen in that decision what we are going to take. So we need to have that full spectrum understanding of the components of those yield what we will have. So it should not be only limited to financial but also social, environment and other benefits what are happening. In London, they in addition to, like Swami sir was saying, the mobility plan and the development plan, they also make economic development strategy. And they weave in all the three, and the mayor is leading the vertical, he is a member of all the three committees. So he knows how the economic development strategies would impact each decisions which is being taken. Their assessment says £1 investment in bus or bus priority reflects in 3.32 pounds. So it is not just public transport which is making that needs viability gap funding, but it is how much jobs you create or how much economy you generate with that investment is more important. So such kind of an assessment, if they are added in your as an economic development strategy, is going to help you make that decisions in institutionalizing those budgetary allocation and right decision making.
Thank you, Chintan. Any other question, comments? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aditi. I am an under-training officer of the 24 batch. And my background is architecture. So I have been trained in architecture, but now coming over to the government side, I have a few observations, and I would like our experts to please comment on that. I have seen that there is one-way broadcast of information, and whatever there is happening in the government, we just broadcast it over to the citizens. And there is not a very sustained and a streamlined feedback mechanism where citizens are constantly engaged with the public functionaries, whether at the state level or at the very bottom of the government cutting edge level. So in this process, many people get alienated. Like those who can access social media, they would just pour over their anger over the handles, but constructive feedback is not available. So what can be the structured way of getting citizen feedback at district level, I would ask. And secondly, the cities are being fueled by migrant population, and we can say they do not have a long-term stake, but they are the ones who bear the brunt of everyday commute and difficulties. How can we engage them in our development process, because they do not form the electoral politics, they do not participate in electoral politics of that particular city where they are working. So these are my questions. Thank you.
All right, we'll come back to that. If there are any other comments, and then we will request Mr. Amrutesh to respond to the first question. Second is a larger one. I think we'll leave it at that.
I'm Rajesh Kaushik, currently working as a senior town planner with Faridabad Metropolitan Development Authority. You rightly said, sir, there is a requirement to have master plan versus when mobility plans. There is no match between the of them. There is no legal provision. Especially, there is a requirement to have the legal provision in the Act oblique rules of the state, or so that those should be made in all the towns rather than just making for the cities which are basically requirement to have the metro project or any other project.
Very right on that.
So secondly, the mobility plans are prepared, but when you look at the execution, the mobility divisions of the various development agencies, they don't consider, they just make the civil engineering projects rather than making more.
No, in fact, mobility plans are prepared to justify metro as
Yeah,
of now.
yeah.
You agree?
Second point, just want to make, when you look more into the non-motorized traffic, how much money is spent on in any town that is not budgeted anywhere. People just look for the civil engineer. The city roads are made for the cars, not for the pedestrian and the. Third one is the engagement is very much important from the citizen side, because they are the people who basically block the road or block the street either through the car or either might be using for any other purpose. So sensitization of the people is very much important.
Right.
And they just, because we say that ye ho raha hai, road mein jam lag gaya, wo ho gaya. Reason being why it's happening, because of us only.
Yeah. Right.
So these are the basic points I just want to make.
Thank you. Yeah, please, ma'am.
Which are prepared, the road junctions, which I just want to add, they are also not people-centric.
Right.
They're just made for the car and then.
Right, so we will summarize it and then we'll also respond to you, madam. Don't think we are not going to respond.
I'm Nidhi Madan from Director with Rahagiri. I just wanted to add to what Sarika talked about is street development. We look at streets as an urban mobility solution. A street is a public space. It belongs to everybody. It belongs to nobody. It's everybody who comes by, uses it. We talk about placemaking, but we forget people hang around streets. Some live on streets. And that sense of ownership and that sense of responsibility, we can only bring into a street once we provide some sense of what the city needs. We say people don't ask for walking, they ask for public transport. They don't ask for walking because either they think this is all they have, or you think it's obvious, or you think it's not going to happen. So they're migrants in cities, they're people with disabilities, they don't get out. Why? Because you cannot access streets. So when we designed Sanath Road, one thing to add to what Bankim was saying is, the important part was the multidisciplinary part. We were landscape architects, there were horticulturists, there were people working in the social sector, we engaged the village. It was such a complex project with corporates and everybody that a lot of dimensions came into it that added value. So when we did the next street, again, we were at the village along the Sarol village, which is has a population of almost 3.5 lakhs. Homes encroached on the street. They understood, because they had seen the previous experience, that it was for their own benefit, and they allowed it to be moved back. So they bought into the life that they were going to get on the street, because they understood what that walkability did. And I think somewhere, we also don't see people who walk. We had done a count on the street, and we saw, and you wouldn't even think it if you saw the street. Before it was developed, 20,000 people walked and 3,000 cycled a day. And these are the numbers probably across the country that we look at, but we don't see them because they're lost in the congestion of traffic.
Yeah, last one. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Priyanka Krishnan. I'm an architect and I work with BPAC, Bangalore Political Action Committee. I have 2 points. One is, can we have a feedback system? Like, instead of having large data sets to work with, which only experts can analyze, can we have feedback systems for bus routes and metro lines which are extremely congested? There are times I myself use public transport. positions where you are not able to breathe because of the amount of crowding. So these are some things that can be easily understood and conveyed. So based on this, our transport planning can be understood, like we can improve working on that by analyzing these surveys, and also how to reach these public transport systems, like by the walk and cycle. There are various factors. It's not just about the footpath. Are we improving our street lighting systems? Are we improving the stormwater drain networks that, you know, when it rains, it should not be flooded and people splash on you as you walk? So can we improve all these systems by also getting the feedback in a structured manner from the communities in these areas and who use these public transport and the systems, the first mile, last mile around these areas? So this is one point I wanted to add. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, and maybe request somebody.
On the first
question.
On the first
The first one. Second one, I think, is a larger question. I think we can leave that there.
To the question that was posed, there are 3 to 4 different levels at which public engagement is done with the government. One, when we take up a big project, a major project, the government has introduced social impact assessment. It is a well-institutionalized system of engaging citizens and getting their feedbacks and altering the projects accordingly. That is one when it comes to the new projects. The another level of engagement would be a policy level. Whenever we form a new policy, it is always put out to the public for comments. The duration is different. It varies from 60 days, at times 15 days, it depends. But yes, even in policies which the government drafts, it is always in the public out for comments. And the third one, which is specifically at the district level, there are more than 150 committees. And in most of them, there are civil society organizations who are representing them, at least one, if not more. In all the committees, they are a part of it. What happens is, where the problem is, after being in the government, what we think is, ये जितना जल्दी निपट जाए उतना अच्छा है, इसको formality करके ख़त्म कर दो. We think any suggestion would create a hindrance. It is other way around. Any suggestion, if taken care of at the right point of time, it is always a support. And if it is not doable, it should be explained why it is not doable. It is not that public wants कि हमने बोल दिया तो हो जाना चाहिए. It is not that. But it should be communicated properly in the right spirit. कि fine, we understand what you are saying, and this is what can be accepted, this is what can be done. This is what we will do. And this can be partly done, and this is something which we cannot do and we will not do. So engaging with the public requires a clear understanding of what can be done and what should be done. So once that is clear, it is not that once we decide ये हमको करना है तो route यहाँ से जाएगा तो यहीं से जाएगा, नहीं. Recently, even in Ahmedabad, just a case, we altered the BRT corridor. It was based on citizen feedback. There were a lot of accidents happening in a particular stretch. So Professor Swami helped us. We redesigned it, and कुछ cuts कम किए, कुछ add किए, and the public is happy. Accidents are zero. So it is not कि हमने एक बार corridor बना दिया तो we stick to it for eternity. It is an ongoing process of improvising. We have new technologies coming up. Citizens are more aware. At the same time, what I think is reaching out to the citizen in a proper manner is also equally important. जैसे, for example, when we put out a policy for public discussion, काफ़ी बार क्या सोचते हैं, if it is a sensitive kind of a policy, सबसे कम advertise होगी ऐसे press में दे दो. Why? So वो बाद में फिर it will bounce back. So how do we engage with the public is what matters the most, is my opinion. So, thank you.
Would you like to answer any of the subsequent questions?
Maybe I'll summarize at the end. You summarize it and then I'll... okay.
Can I add some, in addition to whatever has been spoken?
This is the last one now. Very quick, Nitika. Yes.
Going with what
I thought
said,
I'll
the others are also
give yourself question. Then I'll just whatever routine change broadly.
Why do we not market our transport in our cities? Why is that not marketed? We do good systems, we develop metros, we develop bus systems and stuff, but citizens are not aware about it.
And that's the feedback that, our students, when they did study this time, they got that, people are just not aware about these transit systems. Or, so there's not enough information. And that is something that I think is the basic requirement when we talk about communication and getting citizens also, involved in giving feedback into the system. Thank you.
Because after a long time we are discussing something like this.
Yes, please go on.
I don't think I need mic, but BRTS system in Indore, marketed so well, the name, everything. Finally, what happened? One court case and it has gone. Sorry, marketing, whatever. We need that demand from people now. Like why there were not that 5 lakh people who were using it every day stood up there and, demanded that it should not be dismantled. So again, somehow there is a lot of gap on all these things, and I just don't understand a court order, demolish one of the successful BRT in our country. We just have 2, Ahmedabad and Indore. Now one gone. See, that is how, we need to look into things.
We have Surat, we have Dharwad.
Yeah, sir, but we don't see that, how Ahmedabad is running, or of course, there is Bhopal also, by the way, but
That's gone.
that's also
gone.
gone. So
That's
that
also
also
gone,
gone.
yes.
Delhi gone first, and then, there is a lot of, and we are also giving up. That's why I said we should not be giving up. We are also giving up. None of us fighting.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, आगे हम सबके साथ हैं.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very active session. A lot of insights, a lot of inputs from the experts and also from the audience. I think this will really help in the Mobilizer project that we're doing, some things to take forward. I'll quickly summarize the key things that we talked about. We talked about several initiatives being taken across Indian cities. Particularly, we talked about Bhubaneswar and also Gurugram in terms of how communication and a bottoms-up approach that Sarika talked about helped in co-creating solutions, getting support from the people, which has been kind of successful in being able to implement several people-oriented kind of projects. Co-creating solutions is something which is very important. Understanding the lived experiences of people is something which is very important. But having said that, this also needs scaling up. And in this process of scaling up, what should be done? CSOs having an active involvement in the planning process with the government and a continuous dialogue being created is something that we talked about. We also discussed about the strong, I think Mahinder talked about the strong linkage of the CSOs with the authorities in the planning process, which has been successful. Didn't start in a very positive way, but eventually that was established. Something to take forward in our cases. In the structured planning process, important to embed this. Also important to have multidisciplinary teams in order to be able to handle the mediation or the trade-offs. Education and awareness, making people more aware of what we are doing in their language in very simple terms is very important. Otherwise, it is something which is very complex and left for technology, technical people to undertake. Eventually, how do we have the citizen engagement process on a more continuous level, involving CSOs in that process? Gender budgeting is also something which is very, very crucial, and continual monitoring of what we are delivering to people and creating feedback loops. So these were the key points that we're taking from this session. Thank you so much. I will now pass on the baton to Professor for his concluding remarks.
At the outset, I think, thank you very much. There are so many questions, and then I'm not sure whether we were able to respond to all of them. Need for citizens' engagement is very, very clearly spelt out. But how is the question? I'm not sure we really have a handle on it. we need to figure out, because the no one size fits all, and different places, different contexts, different level of decision making, different way of participating. I think it's what I said earlier, it is actually the question is about getting to do things together. And there is a well-known saying that government has no business to be in business, but I think it is not the right thing to say. Government has to be there to do the business. The nature of the business is only different. That's delivery of services. And the people are the customers. I think what Nitika was asking, what many of them. Therefore, it is the business of delivering services. And that business, how well they are delivering in the marketplace, is the question I think we need to evolve. I think if we are able to make it as a market, function it as a market, I think that is the key role, key topic which we have been discussing. Second important thing which I think many of us talked about in some way or the other, we would make master plans, but then master plan is not just one plan, it's a plan of plans. You have water supply, you have drainage, you have sewerage, you have roads, you have transport, everything else there. And therefore, when you are making these plans, okay, you cannot be taking one master plan as a land use plan, and how do you put all of them together is a part of the story there. And then when you have a plan, and then you have a design, and then you have implementation, and you have monitoring, and then feedback, maintenance, repairs, at all these stages, I think people are at the receiving end in some way or the other. And therefore, how do we connect these different segments of decision processes is what is the key. I'm sure we have some lessons for us to carry back, and we will try and take this study further. We have one more year to go, and hopefully we'll come back next year and report back to you. I hope you will all be there to be with us next year, UMI, wherever it happens. Thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to invite Mr. R. Srinivasji, Honorary Secretary IUT, to give mementos to the chairperson and the other speakers. Yes, I will. Hello, sir. Thank you. Amrutesh ji?
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Amrutesh ji? Sarika? Harshita? Jayanti? Kaustav? Bankar? And also to Mohinder. That's okay. Please come.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.